you tell us about your expertise in filmmaking and how long you've been doing that?
Sure, I can. All right. So my brother Alex and I grew up in a Christian home where we saw the imperfections of faith in the church, but both of our parents were genuinely walking with the Lord in ministry. And we had 8mm cameras, VHS cameras growing up. And we would make these funny little videos in the backyard, in school. Instead of doing a health report, we did the Better Take a Shower Body Odor Hour video for our class at school. In college, we talked our professors into allowing us to make videos instead of papers. That carried on into seminary. And then in ministry, he and I were doing promotional videos, sermon illustrations, camp videos with kids, those kind of things. And Alex always had a dream and a vision of one day making feature films. And so we did not go to film school. We didn't have that kind of training. But in 2002, while we were on staff at a church in Albany, Georgia, we pitched the vision to our pastor. Alex asked him, can we make a feature film for our local community? And so with $20,000 of money that was donated, we filmed a little movie called Flywheel. And the pastor's original vision was to just reach our community. Well, the movie ended up catching fire. You know, people, when they walked out of the theater, they were crying, they were cheering, they were inspired, they were spreading the word. And when the DVD came out, it only showed in 3 theaters in our local region. But when the DVD came out, it started selling in Christian bookstores. It was winning awards. And it wasn't because of the production value. The acting, the cinematography was not impressive in Flywheel. But the story was so strong and emotional. And the biblical truths that we were sharing very boldly in the film were transforming people's lives. And so even though they were used to seeing these gigantic budget Hollywood movies coming out, they were more excited about our low budget film because of the message, because of how it was inspiring them in their marriages and their families and those things. So Flywheel really was the beginning of a fire, I guess you could say, that started, and it has continued to grow on every film that we've produced so far, all the way up to Overcomer that was released last year internationally.
So you mentioned a point, which I found out through the course of my research about, I found this out about the Nollywood industry. I found it out about the Christian faith industry. You said, you talked about production value, the acting and all that not being in par with the secular movies, yet people were galvanizing and gravitating towards the films. So the next question, therefore, for me, this is what I found out. So you just confirmed that. So my question is, what do you consider to be the ingredients of a successful film? What makes a film successful? And I'm talking from a Christian point of view now.
From a secular perspective, people would say a film is successful if it is profitable. So financially, they could argue if you made back more money than you spent, if it is popular, if it has a large fan base, if people consider it to be excellent in quality. You know, there's all these different charts or reviews that people look at to determine if a film is successful or not. There are many big budget Hollywood movies that have professional actors and producers and great special effects, but they were box office flops and they're $100 million in debt, you know, after the movie finishes its run and distribution on Home Depot. In our situation, Home Video. In our situation, we wanted to bless people. We wanted love to be our motivation, not making money. And so it really changes your thinking and how you operate, how you treat your crew, in the contents that you will put in your movies, if love is your motivation. If you really want to bless and help people rather than just get them to spend money on your movie ticket or praise you and clap for you or give you an award, for your work. And so parents see this with their kids. When people have kids, their brain shifts. They start caring for the kids. It changes their values. It changes the decisions that they make when love is the motivation. Well, what happens if filmmakers are motivated by a love for God and a love for other people? It begins to change. Instead of just trying to entertain people, we want to bless them. We want them to have a stronger, healthier relationship with God. We want them to have a stronger, healthier marriage. We want to help them in their relationships with their children. And one of the things that Alex and I talk about are when people are laying on their deathbed and they're only minutes away from passing away, what are they really thinking about at that point? What is important to them at that point in their lives? Is it not where they stand with God? And secondly, where they stand with the people that they love the most? Those are the things they're thinking about at that point. Well, if you take all 6 of our films, you could argue that each one of these films aims at those 2 things, helping people in their relationships with God to get stronger, to be more faith-filled, to seek God's forgiveness, to know him more intimately, to walk with him more closely. And secondly, we're trying to help them in the most important relationships in their lives. How many times have you seen people walk out of a theater after seeing a Hollywood movie or an international, blockbuster film, and they said, "My marriage is better because of having seen this film," or "I'm closer to my children," or "I was able to forgive my enemy," or "I now have a deeper understanding of who God is as a result of seeing this film." You almost never hear that. It's always that was cool special effects, or "I really like that actor," or "that movie really disappointed me," or "that was a waste of time," or "I want to go back and see it again because of the cool action scenes in the film." It was more about cotton candy entertainment than it was really having something of substance and value long term. So what we talk about is, from our perspective, we want to be able to stand before God and hear him say, "Well done, my good and faithful servant." And so if we have obeyed the Lord and we believe that we gave God our best, then we can lay in bed at night with a clear conscience, even if the movie reviewers say that it didn't please them as much as, another film, or if someone else says it's not as cool as an Avengers movie that just came out or whatever. Because the truth is, there's enough entertaining movies already out there. There's so much entertainment, but people are longing for hope. They're longing for peace and joy and love and forgiveness. They're longing to know God. I mean, he has created them to have a relationship with them. And oftentimes people are chasing everything but God in order to find meaning and purpose in life. And so it's so refreshing for us, though, when people contact us from China and say, "I came to know Jesus as a result of seeing Fireproof." Or they say, "My marriage has been transformed from South Africa because of this movie, because of War Room." Or, "I have come to know Christ as my Lord and Savior after seeing Overcomer." Or, "I have a closer relationship with my children because I've seen the movie Courageous." That to me is much more valuable than a plastic, trophy, or even winning an Academy Award that's going to sit on the shelf and collect dust.
So basically, to summarize, I think what you're saying is to effect change in life, changes in life, changes that the film impact, the impact and the change it makes in life is what's important.
Yes. I would say the long-term transformation and change that happens in a person's life is more important to me than winning an award, than getting the applause of men, because those things pass. They last a few minutes. The joy of that fades away. Money does not satisfy. Awards do not satisfy. But if I love you and I help you in your relationship with God, I help you find healing and forgiveness and hope. Man, what kind of price tag can you ever put on something like that?
Right. And I'm deviating a bit from my script now, but I need to ask you that question because this is something that bugs my mind. You talk about secular films entertaining. My question is, what about in Christian films? And this is what I try to get screenwriters to do from my point of view, but I need to ask you this question. What about entertainment value in Christian films? Do you believe in that?
I don't want my meals that I eat to just be nutritious. I want them to be delicious.
Okay.
And so the first point is that we are communicating a message in a movie that we believe God will bless, that we believe will help people. And then we want to make it as entertaining as possible, but we want to choose entertainment that will also build up and edify, not tear people down. So we don't put profanity in our films because that's going to, that could lead us in a wrong direction. We try not to put anything in our films that would cause a child to stumble morally or where we are planting evil in a person's heart. And we can still deal with pornography and divorce and fireproof. We can still deal with violence and the death of a child in Courageous. We can deal with a marriage falling apart in War Room, or a man struggling in his own faith journey after he finds out he can't have children and facing the giants. So we deal with real issues, but we try to be creative enough and careful enough to filter those things through a lens so that we're not leading anyone astray while we're trying to help them. So I'm a big believer in, let's tell very entertaining stories. Jesus's parables were captivating. If you break down the cultural context of even the Good Samaritan story, Jesus is blowing them away with the storyline as it unfolds, but he's communicating what love is at the same time.
So, in terms of Christian films, can you say of any films that resonated with you and why?
Sure. You're talking about Christian films that I've seen? Okay. Well, growing up, Crossing a Switchblade, which is a true story about David Wilkerson evangelizing the gangs in New York City. It's a true story. And how drugs were destroying their lives, but the truth of Jesus was helping them. That movie had an impact on me as a child. When I saw the movie Sergeant York, which was a Hollywood film, or A Man Called Peter, which was also a Hollywood film, both of those were based upon true stories. And when people see how God can change a person's life, and how the trajectory of their future can completely change. He got protecting Alvin York in World War One in the movie Sergeant York, and you see how he honored God with this ability that God had given him to be able to fight. He said, "I'm trying to save lives, not take lives when I'm out on the battlefield." And so those two movies had a big impact on me. Chariots of Fire was a very well done movie, but you're following two men, one that has his identity wrapped up in winning, Harold Abrams, and one who has his identity wrapped up in God, Eric Little. And Eric Little is a better runner and more effective. But he says, when I run, I feel God's pleasure. And even if I lose, I still have a purpose beyond winning. There's such a powerful message in that storyline, and it's based on a true story too, but it's very well done, very emotionally told. And then more recently, our friends, the Irwin brothers, made the movie Woodlawn, or I Can Only Imagine, or I Still Believe. Those are powerful films. The movie The Case for Christ, which came out recently, about Lee Strobel's life and how he hated God and was an atheist and was trying to disprove Jesus and the resurrection. And it was through his research that he ended up coming to faith in God. and how it transformed his life, and now is one of the greatest apologists for the faith in our generation. And that movie was beautifully shot, well acted, well told, very entertaining at the same time that it's communicating a powerful message.
Thank you. Also, to my next question, what do you think the role of social media is in this day and age in marketing films and getting the word out about films?
Well, word of mouth, I would say, is always the best promotion for a film, because how many times have you seen a movie trailer that was impressive and the film was so disappointing? So when your friends and people around you tell you, I've seen a film, you ask them, was it good? Should I go see it? Would you want to see it again? And so word of mouth has shifted from being, uh, across the locker room or across the dinner table to being now on social media or through Twitter or Instagram or Facebook or those ways. And so we end up using a lot of our budget money now in the marketing of our films on social media, because your review can go viral. You can communicate to a lot of people and specifically target that media towards a specific audience for pennies, where you market to a large crowd. So we're big believers in marketing through social media. We try to under promise and over deliver in our marketing so that when people see the movie, they never say that the movie was not as good as the trailer. We always try to be honest. We want to be honest in our marketing so that people aren't disappointed, because word of mouth buzz is actually based upon exceeding expectations. And so it's so important that you don't overinflate your marketing, because if people think your movie's going to be a 9 or a 10 and it ends up being a 5 or a 6, they walk out disappointed. And so it's important to intrigue them enough to get them in the theater, but for you to exceed their expectations at the same time, so when they walk out they say that movie was way better than I thought it was going to be.
So you say that you get yourself involved in everything. Does that include actually in the social media marketing, as in hands-on?
Yes, we will hire a massive team to help us market our movies. Sony has been our distributor all the way back since Space and the Giants. So our last 5 films were distributed by Sony Pictures. And so their marketing budget that they use, they will hire a website team, a radio team, a social media team, and then they'll have a grassroots team that's connecting with whoever the target audience is. So we're pre-screening the movies to key leaders within those organizations. And so all of those things are working together. It's almost like many oars are in the water rowing in the same direction. And so my brother Alex and I are involved with the movie trailer design and the posters design. And then we're marketing the film. We're doing hundreds of interviews to promote the films. And at the same time, we are being a part of approving videos and promotional tools that are going out on Facebook and social media to help spread the word.
Again, on marketing, I read in the past that you get involved, the church involved, like the local churches. And this thought has always been on my mind as someone who makes music. Is it viable? Is it viable? Is it realistic to continuously expect the church to support the church network, to support what you do, in the sense that always relying on church to galvanize members to go out and watch movies? Is it a strategy that can be relied on?
Well, it is a trust relationship that we have developed with the churches. And because Alex and I served for 20 years in church ministry, we have been on the other side of the table. We've been marketed to by people. And when you're in a leadership position in the church, you're constantly asking the question, will this benefit our church? Will this serve our people? Will this help us? And so, from a marketing perspective, we don't need to come to the churches saying, how can we get them to serve us and buy our product? We try to come to them with a tool that they can use that can serve their local church. And so, every one of our movies is something that they can say, this is going to help us. This is going to help us do our ministry. This will help us reach our community. This will help in our marriages, our families, our fathering, our parenting, our prayer ministries. And so we're providing a tool to the church that they can then use to help them do God's will as they're serving their people. What we have seen at the same time is there have been these movies that have come out and they're marketing them to the church. And really, there's not much benefit to the church of going to see that film other than the entertainment value that they may have. And so they're begging pastors, please support our movie, please promote it from the pulpit. And it's really just to serve the filmmaker, it's not to serve the local church. When that happens, it doesn't last very long because those pastors get burned out, the churches get burned out. They're trying to promote something and people walk away saying, was there any benefit of that? Is there any fruit that came out of that? Did that really help us? Or was it really just to make money for the filmmakers? In our situation, because impacting people's lives for eternity is our number one priority, we want to serve the local church. So we come to them with something and we tell the pastors, watch this film and let your staff watch the film. If you don't think it's going to help your local church, don't promote it. But what has happened consistently is when they saw War Room and they said, this is going to help us call our people to prayer, or they saw Overcomer, this is going to help us teach identity in Christ to our people, then they see us as a partner in their ministry and a friend, and they continue to allow us to pitch our movies to them and to work in partnership with them. And they're not getting burned out because the relationships are staying healthy.
That's very insightful. So, in light of that, in light of that question, so what would you, in your opinion, see as the best platform for distribution of Christian movies? And the reason why I say that is that so many times I think that, and I'm talking from wearing the hat of a gospel music producer, that we're always preaching to the converted in that sense. And I don't get why we can't let our art form, if you want to use the word art form, because it is art form, why it doesn't transcend religion, why it doesn't transcend, and why we just focus on the Christian audience. So what so the real question is, what are the best, in your view, the best distribution platform for Christian movies?
Well, Jesus, did he preach the gospel through parables to the world, or did he speak overtly to his disciples? He did both.
Okay.
And so, in our situation, if God was calling us to make films specifically for the non believers, we would make different films because we would be like Jesus making parables that would communicate and resonate with the masses, speaking their language at their level. So far, the 6 films that we have produced, when we prayed about that, we felt like the Lord was saying, be very overt and speak very clearly with the church. So our films so far have been aimed at the church on purpose because the scriptures communicate that God will reach the world through a unified church. Jesus said in John 17, when he's praying for believers, he said, when the church is unified, then the world will know that God sent Jesus into the world. And so, who is the church to tell the world to get your marriages together when the church has marriages that are falling apart? And so, what we want to do is we want to help first the church get our house in order, get our lives right with God, and God will reach the world through a church that is on fire. So we have aimed our films first at the church, And then we have included a gospel message in them because we know that they will bleed over and millions of people beyond the church will see them. So sometimes people tell us, they say, you're just preaching to the choir. And we're thinking that's exactly what we're doing. And we're doing it on purpose because the choir needs preaching too. And if we can help the choir get on fire for God and we can help the church get on fire for God, it will then spill over when they get their lives right, their marriages right, their prayer lives right, their relationships with their children right. They will be much more effective in helping their neighbor and the community, their coworkers, the rest of the world. And so, so far, the Lord has led us to do that. So, in our situation, we specifically market to the church our films. If the Lord led us to make a movie that was specifically more for a secular audience and it had Christian themes embedded in that, then we would do more of a traditional approach of marketing those films through social media, through movie trailers, through television commercials, and those things. But I would say you need to figure out who is your audience, what is the best way to market to that specific audience, and I'm a believer in showing leaders your movie early so that they can feel completely confident with the film, and then they will become the megaphone to promote it to their followers in that situation. So we will allow leaders to privately watch our film, and then they will rave about and support and promote the films. The only way that works, though, is if the film is good. We've seen other people try to market their products and market their movies to leaders, and the movies weren't that good, and the pastors walked out and they say, "I'm not going to promote this film," or the Christian music artist or the Christian politician or whoever the leader was that we were trying to connect with. They must like the film in order to spread the word about it.
Okay. So in terms of script writing and choosing projects, what factors do you consider in making a project in terms of your project choices? Um, what is it? Is it intuitive choices? Is it what is it? What is it that guides you in the choice of what you're going to do next?
Well, we have found that there's a big difference between a good idea and a God idea. And everybody has a good idea for a movie, it seems. Just about everybody in my family, they could tell you, you ought to make a movie about this. All of our friends, you ought to make a movie about this. We are contacted every week with people saying, please make my storyline into a movie or make my story into a movie. And so, and at the same time, I have so many movie ideas I've come up with, and Alex has as well. There's just not enough time to do it. And so we come back to what's the God idea? What is on God's heart? What do we believe the Lord is leading us to make a movie about? And so we will spend months in prayer and saying, Lord, would you show us the storyline that is on your heart? Would you use scripture? Would you use circumstances to make it clear what we need to make a movie about? And consistently, here's what's happened: as we are praying and we are in a posture of surrender to the Lord, He will start inspiring a specific direction. He will confirm that with our entire team. There will be a sense of peace about it. It says in Colossians 3:15 that God will use a peace in our hearts to direct His children. He will confirm that with His word. There'll be scriptures that we're reading that are lining up with that same direction. So I could tell you about the same direction. So I could tell you about the backstories on any of our 6 films, how there was usually a scene idea that Alex got in his head. There was a scripture direction God was giving me. There was confirmation in our circumstances and with a peace in our hearts. There were doors that were opening in front of us. sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars would come out of nowhere to basically fund the project at the same time that we're praying for it. And then as we moved forward by faith, God would bless the writing, the directing, the distribution, and then we would see people's lives being changed as a result. So with us, it really is a faith journey of seeking the Lord and trying to get on his bus and let him drive rather than trying to convince God to jump on our bus and bless whatever it is that we've decided we want to do.
Okay. And finally, are there any tips you want to share with anybody who wants to get involved in filmmaking? Any tips? What do you think can help them?
I would say in this generation, you have the opportunity to learn very quickly without even going to film school. You can set up your own film school by going to YouTube and taking master classes and learning different filmmaking skills from your house. You can learn a lot about script writing, about the roles that are on a movie set, about how to market your project. So I would say be developing your own film school, be reading books, be watching training videos, those kind of things. At the same time, I would network with other Christian filmmakers. There are film conferences and film festivals that are specifically designed for Christians that in the United States, I mean, we just came from one 2 weeks ago that's in Nashville every year called the Christian Worldview Film Festival. And we do training and networking with other filmmakers. And it's a great opportunity for you to grow and learn with other people. And then thirdly, I would say get out your cell phone, your iPhone, your smartphone, and start filming shorts. Start telling a story in 2 minutes. Make people laugh, make them cry, inspire them, challenge people in a little 2 minute video that you film and edit from home. It was through home filming that we began to learn about script writing, about editing, about shot selections, about camera angles, those things. We have amazing software that's available to this generation very inexpensively where you can begin to produce things. And so, but then go from making a 2 minute short to making a 5 minute, 10 minute, 20 minute. And sometimes it's when you make a really good, high quality 10 minute video or 20 minute video that people say, you're a talented filmmaker and I'm willing to invest in you so that you can go make a feature film or a documentary or something else. But I would say don't despise small beginnings. Be okay with starting small and then growing in your skills over time.
Thank you for the time spent on the interview. May God bless you, and I'm grateful for your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Isaac. Good to meet you, brother. God bless you.